I was gonna tell this one, but let's tell this one. I think this one is a good one. Well, we can go back to this one. Developed. Hello, everybody. Do you have your drink and your snack? Oh, I'm not even live. I thought it was live here. Mhm. Hello, hello. How you doing? We're about to start class. I'm just going to make my cup of tea. Cup of tea. Does that mean it's okay? We'll put a little bit of pink salt in it for hydration. A little bit. I can't even. I have to tilt this. I have to tilt the what do you call it? TikTok screen. I can't even make a cup of tea on TikTok without TikTok running up and saying, this activity, it may not be suitable for all audience, blah, 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 blah. It is something. So, I'm going to have okay. So I'm going to make my cup of tea. Feel free to take a moment to get your drink and your snack. I'm going to use a dehydrated lime or lemon. These are really great. If you can get these and use them in your teas and your cooking, it's like really fantastic. These dehydrated lemons, they're really, really great. They're fantastic. You toss them in your tea. And then I have my congest tea. Congest tea. I've been using that for years. I've been using that for years, the congest tea. And then let's see what this one is. Mm, okay. The South African rooibos. 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 Yeah. A lot of good things come from South Africa. That's just my opinion. There's so many interesting and nice things come from South Africa. It's my little thing. Yeah, get the hot water. Okay. Yay. And then a little bit of glamour magic. Mm. Remember to like and share the video. Remember to give it a thumbs up. That lets the platform know to inform others, notify others that class has started. Welcome to today's installment in the Matchstick Girl saga. A TikTok AI summary says, making congested tea with dehydrated lemons. Suggest your favorite tea. So what's your favorite tea? Since TikTok is putting on this AI summary for me. So suggest your favorite tea. My favorite tea is this congested tea. Oh my God, TikTok is so funny. Get your notebook and your pen. We're going to continue the Matchstick Girl series today. And remember that as we listen to these stories and analyze these stories, the point is to learn from the stories. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Tochi, aka Mama and Papa of the men's and women's. More of a papa of the men's and women's than a mama of the men's and women's. Okay. And we're here to learn practical spirituality, spirituality that solves the problems, not the ones that create problems, not the woo kind of thing. It looks like I have bags under my eyes. I was partying last night, so you know what? I'm going to go ahead and put on this thing. There's this thing that I got from Ulta. I can show it on YouTube here. But the TikTok people, if I show you, TikTok now turns around and says, it looks like you're trying to sell something. So unfortunately, there's just I don't know, TikTok used to be so fun, and then after a while it was just like full of this restriction and that restriction. So anywho, so this is supposed to be for the face. So well, let's see how that works. Let me put it on. Please let me know if I'm doing this correctly. Because I know some of your beauty queens and beauty kings, and you have more experience doing this than I do. Let me see. I think I'm supposed to bring it up here, right? And this one is supposed to have caffeine and some other herbal things in it. And this thing is so thin. Um the first time I put it on, I didn't know I had put on 2, 3 at the same time. Is when the thing started slip sliding around my face. I was like, wait a minute. This looks like a little bit more than I had anticipated. So, so do you see now? We have to take our rich auntie thing seriously. I hope I'm doing this correctly. I think it is. Okay, there we go. Ah! I think it went into my eye there. Okay, there we go. Okay, there we go. Yeah. Bit of the juice here. So, if you're able to put on your whatever it is you need to put on while class is in session, please go ahead and do so. Okay. I think it was like trying to get into my eye. Okay, there we go. So, if some of you are going to be watching the replay of this later, and say, "What does she have on her face?" You can see what I put on my face. Oh, I need to smash this. The first time I looked into these things, like you see how dark they are, okay? Um, I was like, "Oh, why is it so dark?" But then I wasn't too familiar with dehydration and dehydrated um fruits and things like that. And I remember one time I ate an Iraqi dish and they cooked with these lemons and stuff. They the lemons they used to cook were like literally black. And I was like, "Ah." Mm. So anywho, hi, pretty shape. Thank you for the likes. Maybe I did not have enough sleep. I actually did have quite a bit of sleep because I got home around just after midnight. And then by the time I settled down and everything, cleaned my face and everything, it was 1 a.m. And then went to bed and I slept soundly. Now, I did have some interesting dreams, but I did sleep soundly. Okay. So before I forget, we're going to have a grief ritual next Wednesday. If you'd like to participate, secure your seat, and you will be sent a short list of things you can quickly get together for the ritual so that you can participate in the ritual. The grief ritual is not going to be a class, it's not going to be a lecture, it's not going to be a presentation. It will be full participation. It will be conducted on video conference. So you will need to have your camera on, your microphone on, so that you can participate. It will not be recorded. It will not be posted. It will not be streamed on live because it's a ritual. McDad says, "Oh, these are very tasty. We use them as seasoning and we make very delicious tea using them." Yeah. So I put it in my tea. It's right here in my tea. Well, I can't tip the tea now without spilling the tea all over my keyboard. Yeah, I found out that actually so the Numi makes a brand called Desert Dry Lime that is absolutely delicious. And I guess they make them from these dried limes. And they talk about the history of how they used to make dried limes in their country, back then. I forgot how many minutes I'm supposed to leave these tea bags on. Is it tea bags? They're not tea bags. Caffeine energizing hydrogel eye patches. Apply patches on cleansed, dry skin. Gently press onto skin. Leave on for 10 to 15 minutes for a quick, energized result. Gently remove hydrogel by sliding away from the application spot. Massage remaining serum into skin and let fully absorb before putting other products. I already put other products on my face. I already did. Oh, but you must remove the seeds to avoid the bitter taste development. Oh, okay. I never noticed a bitter taste, and I guess I didn't notice because tea can be bitter. Like, I have a lot of herbal teas happening here, so that in itself has its bitterness. I'm more of a bitter than sweet person. I don't mean my personality, because someone's going to say, "Aha! We caught her in video saying she's a bitter personality." That's not what I meant. We're talking about the tea. We're talking about taste. Oh, yeah. Dr. Tochi confessed on live that she's a bitter personality. She's not sweet. Mhm. Because people are just weird. Somebody was just like do a screenshot or screen recording. Hi, I am culture. And they're gonna say, "Oh yeah, this is her saying that she's a bitter person. She's not a sweet person." I like bitter tastes more than I like sweet tastes. Okay, peace to you too. And there are people who are like that too. Like some people like sour taste. They prefer the sour taste. They're used to sour taste. You know, I um I am into bitter tastes. So I do well with coffees and teas and herbs and um these things they call bitters. Those things they call bitters that you can take after dinner or after eating bitters. I'm a big fan of bitters because I just like the bitter taste. I just like bitter taste. I don't have a problem with it. So we're going to have that grief ritual next Wednesday. I encourage you to sign up if you have stuff you're grieving about. And it doesn't have to be people. There are many things in life that we grieve, and we have to get that grieving out of the way so that we can move forward. We need to let go of that grief energy. Some of us are just holding on to stuff. Thank you, Super Dave. Thank you for the heart me. I appreciate you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So, um, okay, you like bitter chocolate. Me too. So, I encourage you to participate in the ritual. If there are things in your life you need to grieve, situations, conditions, people, pets, aspirations, dreams, destiny, whatever it is. Many of us are like, go, I just need to keep on going, 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 going. And we don't realize that grieving is a necessary human function. And this is especially important for those who are spiritual healers. If you're a spiritual healer, you have the capacity to hold on to so much sorrow and trauma and pain. And you need to have a time when you can just sit down and grieve. Grieve what you've lost, grieve what you haven't attained, grieve, just grieve. And sometimes, and the thing, what I like about these rituals, and I like attending rituals facilitated by others because when another person is facilitating a ritual, I can sit back and participate. I can sit back and participate. So, sometimes people are like, oh, you're doing this ritual and that ritual. Somebody needs to facilitate it. Somebody needs to run it. Somebody needs to say, okay, I'm going to hold space for other people to do what they need to do in this ritual. And that in itself is a very self-sacrificing position when you're facilitating events and when you're facilitating rituals. It's a self-sacrificing position because you might be sitting there facilitating an event and you're saying, I would like to participate in this. I would like to fully participate, but you can't fully participate because you're busy caring for others who are participating in that event. So you have to be outside looking in as other people are participating in this event. So that's why I like organizing these things because we have people who serve others. There are many of you who serve others. There are many of you who spend so much time helping others. It could be family, it could be friends, and you're the one who's holding space, but no one has time to hold space for you. And sometimes all you want to do is to do what you need to do and be witnessed. That's why we have these group rituals. The witnessing is important. And we see this in um, our metaphysical studies, and we also see this in the research data. That's why, like, for example, when they were doing truth and reconciliation uh, committees in South Africa and Rwanda, they were made public. It wasn't like a private thing. Those truth and reconciliation committees and events were public because the people who went through all that conflict and trauma wanted to be witnessed. And witnessing is important. Witnessing is important. But even the witnessing has to be guided. Even that witnessing has to be facilitated. Because you don't want to be there sharing your truth or going through your emotions, and somebody is in there throwing judgment at you or making comments that are inappropriate for the event that's being done. That's why you need a facilitator. The facilitator is the one who maintains the boundaries of the ritual, making sure that those that need to be outside are outside, and those who need to be inside are inside. What if I learned to be at peace with the parents I did not have? I have narcissistic parents that did not make me feel that I am their son. Wait a minute. I know who you are. You know, I've been seeing you in the classes, and I would just read and keep on going. I just realized who you are. My darling, how are you? Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. You will find the grief ritual beneficial. You will find the grief. Oh my god! You know, because I've been seeing you on these classes, and I tell you that I forget a lot, and it was not registering. It's what it's when I read the comment, and then something went in my head. Ding, 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 ding. Oh my god! Yeah, the grief rituals. There are individual grief rituals. There are community grief rituals. And what I'm going to conduct is a community or group grief ritual. In a group grief ritual, there's the element of being witnessed, like I mentioned. Okay. Uh, We want, as human beings, we want to be seen. We want someone to acknowledge our presence. And people have a lot of issues with that. I mean, just go online and look at the comments on certain videos. People want to be seen, people want to be acknowledged. And that's why, just like little children, we will do strange things sometimes because we want to be seen and we want to be acknowledged. Oh, you're okay. You're okay, my dear. You're okay. Okay. So, you know, we're all like little kids on the inside. Okay. And a child, a normal child would be like me, 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 me. Okay. And a child will do good things and not so good things in order to get attention. And the reason why children want you to pay attention to them is because they want to be acknowledged. They want you to acknowledge their presence that, yes, I am here. So we, even though we're adults, we still want to be seen. We still want to be acknowledged. Okay. When we go through a group or communal grief ritual, we want people to say, your what you are grieving is valid. And the reason why that is important is because there are times we will say to somebody, well, let's use yours as an example. Okay. I have narcissistic parents that did not make me feel like I'm their son. Okay. I am sure that there are some family members you reported this to, that you said to them, my parents are not making me feel like I'm their son. And what did that relative say? More likely than not, they will give you one statement or the other, and you go away feeling like, oh, these people just blew me off. You know what I mean? They didn't address me. They didn't address the issue. Sometimes you might go and tell your relatives, oh, my parents are treating me like I'm not their son, and they will go report you. And then it will bring you more problems and more grief. But the main issue why you said this is how I feel is not addressed. That was not addressed. People are like, oh, you're a bad son. You should be grateful. It doesn't matter if they say they love you, they don't love you. You should be grateful. They put food in your belly and clothes on your back and a roof over your head, and you're not out on the streets. And they say all these things, or they will quote the Quran. Put your faith in Allah. Trust in Allah. Allah will soothe your heart. But you are still human being. So so yeah, you're quoting the Quran to me, but you're addressing the spiritual aspect. How about the human aspect? So that's why we're here. We talk about practical spirituality because we're talking not just of the spiritual aspect, excuse me, but we also speak of the physical aspect. We live in a world of duality. You can't always be saying spiritual, 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 and ignore the physical. And you can't say physical, 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 and ignore the spiritual. We are dualistic beings in a dualistic world with a dualistic existence. And for us to be balanced, both sides need to be addressed. So, yeah, you're telling me that Allah will take care of me. Allah will soothe my heart. But I still feel the weight in my body, in my heart. What about that? Oh, you reported me. Remember, I shared the story of an aunt I went to and I said, oh, my mom's always beating me. And I thought that that aunt was safe. I thought she was safe. That's why, because, and the reason why I thought she was safe was because I saw her hugging her son. And her son was a few years younger than me. I saw that aunt, we went to their home and I saw that aunt hugging her son. So I assumed, the little child I was, assumed that that aunt was safe. So I went to that aunt and I said, oh, my mom's always beating me. And what did she say? You're probably a bad child. You're probably an evil child. That's why she beats you. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm putting it politely because of social media. They don't say probably. She says you're a bad child. That's why your mother is beating you. Because, they don't use the word probably. Okay. Okay. So the relative said, do not be so sensitive. They sure loved you. This is an instinct in every parent. You do not know how much they love you because you do not have sons. Now, exactly. But they're not addressing the reason why you feel the way you do. And you have a valid reason for feeling the way you do. You have a valid reason. You do have a valid, there's something going on because if everything were okay, you would not make that comment. You would not have that complaint. You would not feel that way if everything was okay. But everything is not okay. And so as a child, you say everything is not okay. And the adults, because they have learned how to suppress their own feelings and suppress their own grief, they now directly and indirectly start indoctrinating and programming you to suppress your own too. Because basically what they're saying to you is this is how we survive. Here is the manual for surviving life. That is basically what they're saying. You cannot go through life being touchy-feely. You cannot go through life being sensitive. You cannot go through life just relying on your feminine energy. Toughen up. But just like we learned in yesterday's story about Dimani and Demazani, I think it was, from the South African story we dealt with yesterday, the feminine and masculine energies exist together and they work together. And we should be able to flip between the two, but somebody has to teach us how to do the flipping. Everyone say they're the best people. I do not believe you saying about them you're not appreciative of what they did and very much more. Of course, because that is their coping mechanism. They know you're telling the truth. A lot of people know that you are telling the truth, but they don't know what to do with the truth you're telling them. They don't know what to do with it. So they basically suppress it and say, well, man up. We go to our relatives and we go to adults and we go to older people because we assume that because they're older, they have more experience than we do. And that the quality of their experience is better than the quality of our experience. But we come to quickly learn that this is not the case. This is not the case. And so that's why we have these kinds of rituals where you can be witnessed. And we're not going to go there and you're saying, okay, this is this pained me. I felt this. And other people who are in the ritual are not there telling you, oh no, don't be so sensitive. They loved you to the best of their capability. They did the best they could based on the knowledge they had and all those kinds of platitudes. The little child on the inside is not interested in those platitudes. We're not interested in those platitudes. We're not interested in those platitudes. I want you to hear me. And even if you can't fix it, I want you to hear what I'm saying. So when we go through a grief ritual, there's a lot that happens in a grief ritual, and this is just a portion of what happens in a grief ritual, a well-conducted grief ritual. And I probably should be doing a grief ritual. I probably should be facilitating a grief ritual every month, truth be told. But even for a facilitator, it is heavy work. It's heavy work because you're facilitating. You cannot participate because you have to hold space for everybody else. And you are listening to what other people are saying and what they're expressing. And you yourself, as the facilitator, can get triggered. Because somebody might say something that reminds you of your own situation. And that's why the facilitator, the ritual master's position is difficult. People think it's just, oh, okay. Dr. Tochi is putting together a ritual. She's gonna, put it together, and she's just gonna be saying words, and she's good, just gonna be saying these words and saying these nice words and things. No, A real authentic, experienced, um, ritual master does more than that. Okay? So, okay, at this point, don't put out too much in the comment section. I know, because now we're digging. So, you just hold it. I would just say attend the grief ritual. Don't put out too much in the comment section because I know it's, you know, you might will start coming out. Okay. Don't put don't put more in the comment section. Okay. The facilitator of rituals, who is also known as a ritual master, if they are doing what they're supposed to do correctly and doing it well, it takes energy out of the person doing it. Okay. It takes energy. And the reason why it takes energy is because I was supposed to rub the serum into my face. I forgot. Oh well. The reason why it takes that energy is because you have to maintain control of yourself so that you can maintain the boundaries and the space for others to be themselves. And sometimes as a ritual master, you will be drained. Kiona, Tuesday might be too close because it's Wednesday at 1 p.m. CST. There's nothing to be sorry about, my darling. I'm just saying protect yourself. That's why I'm saying just protect yourself. Don't put out too much. And the supplies you need to get, you know, you might need to go here and there and get it. It's not like big deal. You can go to one store and get everything you need. Um, but just know that you want to give yourself enough time to gather yourself together and put you know, have your space ready for it, Kiona. Um, So that's why when we do the ritual, I say to people, make sure you have your camera, make sure you have your microphone, because even as others witness you in your grief, you too want to be witnessed. And I don't like doing events or conducting events where somebody comes and take. And I've had that where people are like, oh, I want to share first, or I want to do this first, or I want to speak first. And they speak first. After they're done speaking, they're not interested in listening to what any other person has to say because they have, you know, done their thing. They've offloaded themselves and they're not interested in what. And so when other people are speaking, they're busy multitasking or trying to do something else. So that's one of the reasons why I say you need to be there with your camera on. Because if we're in the middle of a ritual and you play your part and get what you want, and you're not supporting other people who have supported you, I will call you out. I will call you out. Ask anyone who attends my rituals. It's serious affairs. They're very serious affairs. Okay. We went through the Cinderella series. We're going through the Matchstick Girls series. And I am aware that as we go through these stories, people, things might start touching them, reminding them of things they have put aside. And they're like, oh, okay, I've dealt with it. I've dealt with it. Okay, you dealt with it, but you didn't let it go. You dealt with it, but you didn't let it go. And you will hear people say, oh, I've accepted it. I've accepted it. You accepted it, but you didn't let it go. The fact that you're like, okay, I accept that my parents were narcissistic doesn't mean that you've let it go. You just accepted it. And when you are in your spiritual practice, and let's say, for instance, you're working with your spirit guides and you're like, oh, help, oh, my spirit guide, help me with this, help me with this, and help me with that. And those things you are asking for help with, okay, let's say those things don't come to pass or they don't come through. What are you now thinking? Are you sitting there saying, oh, these spirit guides are just like my narcissistic parents? Are you sitting there saying to yourself, oh, this spirituality thing doesn't work. Let me return to my egregore. So maybe you were into the Jesus egregore or whatever egregore, Allah egregore, Jehovah egregore, whatever egregore, Yahweh egregore, Baha'i egregore, Shiva egregore, Ogun egregore, whatever egregore. And then you go to that egregore, and the egregore still doesn't solve your problem. So you go through life disillusioned. Oh, I might get what I want, I may not get what I want. This whole place is fucked up. I understand. So this also affects our spiritual lives. Affects our spiritual practice. It affects our spiritual confidence. When I come here and say I have handled some of the big traumas of my life, what does it mean? This is what it means. Conducting a grief ritual, participating in a grief ritual, performing a grief ritual is inner work. Because during the grief ritual, you don't run away from it. You don't. You don't. On whatever it is. And people grieve about different kinds of things in life. I believe somebody was asking me the other day, um, people were asking the other day, oh, can you participate in a grief ritual if, you didn't have somebody who died and I said yes. Because again, grief rituals are about the things you grieve about or the things you needed to grieve about. So it's challenging work both for the facilitator and for the participant. There have been some grief rituals that I've done. Like I did one for one time for some police officers. It was very difficult, law enforcement. And a lot of times when you look at the popo, you're saying, oh yeah, those MFs, those little beastly people, they don't care. You need to see them during a grief ritual, what happens. There's a lot of suppression and repression that happens in order for you to be a successful law enforcement officer. You have to, in order for you to survive in law enforcement, any kind of law enforcement, you have to know how to suppress your emotions. You need to know how to override your emotions. When you're given instructions, you follow those instructions regardless of how you feel about what you were told to do. And there are logical reasons for this because people's lives might be on the line. And so you might be saying, "Oh, well, you know that." No, it's not. When the chips are down in the middle of action, in the middle of conflict, in the middle of drama, it is those instructions that will carry you through and enable you to survive that experience. And then after that, you can be as emotional as you want to be. And that takes a toll on law enforcement officers. And many law enforcement officers don't know how to put down, lay down the the repressive personality when they get home because it now becomes second nature. They have, in order for them to do their job well, they have to allow themselves to be programmed deeply. Because if you don't allow yourself to be programmed deeply as a law enforcement officer, you won't make it. So you have to allow yourself to be programmed deeply. And many of them, when they go home, don't know how to switch off that programming. So they have a lot of grief. They carry they carry a lot of grief that they cannot express because they may go to their colleagues, their peers, and say, "Well," and the person's like, "Ah, man up, what's wrong with you? Are you getting soft? Are you still a good fit for the job?" And you don't want to lose your job. You got bills to pay. You've got status. I'm law enforcement. And when I say law enforcement, I'm not just saying the popo. I'm also including military. I'm also including yeah, firefighters, other kinds of law enforcement, people who have to come in and take charge and make decisions that may not be popular. That may have to use extra energy in order to control and maintain an environment or situation. Can you imagine the amount of grief they carry in their hearts and minds that's unresolved. Can you imagine? We don't even want to talk about the grief carried by people who work in the hospitals, especially palliative care. Palliative care is when you provide care for people who are terminal, people who are not going to make it. You're looking at this person and you know they're not going to make it. And it's your job to care for the person. And maybe the person, needs pain medication. Maybe the person, is spiritually distressed. The person is there crying, going, "Why me? I'm a good Christian. I'm a good Muslim. I'm a good Hindu. I'm a good, you know, whatever it is that they believe in. I've always paid my tithes. I've always done this. I've been good to other people. Why me?" And you have to take care of that kind of person. It even may so while you're caring for that person, you too, you're questioning yourself. Because you're there caring for this person and you're there asking yourself, what if this happens to me? How will I handle this? There are many people who get into the caring profession, especially nursing, because one, they see it as good karma. Secondly, they get into it because they see it as a means of converting people to their religion. They're strongly they strongly believe their religion and they're like, okay, I will get into this caring profession where I will have contact with a lot of suffering people and I will use this opportunity to convert them, to proselytize them into my religion. So this is why grief rituals are necessary. And in some communities, they will have one like once every year where everybody in the community, some of you remember, especially members, remember when we studied Dr. Malidoma Some's book? I think we studied two of his books when he talked about his community. And they had grief rituals. And in his book, um, is it of the water and spirit? When he talked about how his community handled grief, especially when someone in the community passed, and how many days it took, and the specific things they would do to properly mourn the person. And if you remember when we studied his book, he mentioned people would even use the opportunity of mourning that person to mourn the people they couldn't mourn when they needed to mourn the person. So people will piggyback. So you have grief piggybacking on other grief. So the community will come together and pool all their grief together. And it became a very cathartic experience. It became a very cathartic experience. So, like I said, it's probably something I should do every month, facilitate every month, but it's heavy work. It's heavy work. It's heavy work. And even as I'm facilitating it, I have to control myself. Because if I don't control myself and everybody in there is doing their own thing, it becomes utter chaos. It is necessary work. And it has to be organized properly. I've attended a couple of grief rituals that left a lot to be desired. I've attended some grief rituals, they called it grief ceremonies, where people were more concerned about the salacious details of other people's grief, and they wouldn't share theirs. But they were more interested. It was just like, what's the term for it? So people are venting or doing their thing, and they're like, "Yeah, tell me more. So what happened? So your mother left you? Then how did you people did y'all try applying for food stamps? Did and so because it was uncontrolled environment. And people now started dipping themselves into people's business, but they were not grieving. They were just there as voyeurs. Oh, I went there. Here's what Tochi said. Here's what Mary said. Here's what Peter said. Here's what Joshua said. Oh, can you believe Joshua's mom used to leave him alone at home? And so next time Joshua came around the church, oh, poor Joshua. Joshua, I know your background. I know the reason why you're saying what you're saying is because your mom left you alone at home. That's BS. And so that's why I'm not a fan of these kinds of things being done at places like church or mosque or those places where some people will be holding back. They're there as voyeurs. They want to hear everybody else's stories. They want to talk about everybody else's stories. They didn't come there to participate. They came there to feed their salacious appetites. Oh, they came there for storytelling. So I learned very quickly when churches would say, "Oh, we're going to have a grief group," or some institute, or when some institution or whatever says, "Oh, we're going to have a grief group. We're going to put together a grief group." I'm very reluctant to attend because a lot of times it is uncontrolled. And some people are just there. They will not say anything. They will just sit there listening, and you don't even know if they have a recording device because for them it's entertainment. A grief ritual is not entertainment. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is not entertainment. It is inner work. And that's why I enforce no recording rule. I enforce it spiritually. I bind I bind it with a curse. And if I find out that someone, and there was someone some years ago who made recordings even after it was announced, no recordings, and I think it took about a year or so. It it came that she made a recording. I prosecuted. I reported it to law enforcement. I reported, and she was dealt with. Because I don't want to be in a ritual like a grief ritual and somebody's recording me when I'm very vulnerable. I don't want that. Because at that point of vulnerability, I could be saying anything. I'm not saying anything wrong. I'm not breaking the law. I'm not doing anything. I am just wanting to be held. I'm a child wanting to be seen and to be acknowledged and to be validated, not to be recorded. No, it's okay if they know each other. It's okay if they know each other. All I'm saying is that we don't want to be recording and we don't want people who are not participating. People who are just sitting there and going, mm-hmm. And then you ask the person, okay, do you have anything to share? And the person says no. If you have nothing to share, if you have nothing to say, if you have nothing to contribute, why are you here? Are the rest of us entertainment for you? Do you understand what I mean? Should I still tell today's story or should we keep it for tomorrow? Because we've already spent an hour talking about grief rituals. So the title of today's class needs to be really on grief rituals. So should I still go ahead with today's story or should we leave it at that and I can tell it tomorrow? Does anyone have any questions about grief rituals? Once you, and my hope is that when people participate in the grief rituals I conduct, that they themselves will be able to do it for themselves. Now, when you do a grief ritual for yourself, it may or may not have the same impact as a grief ritual you participated in with other people. Because when you are in a solo grief ritual, your witnesses are your spiritual crew. And for some people, sometimes you want a human being to witness you. Okay. Sometimes you want a person to witness you. And it's only human to want human witnessing because it's the human that says to you something. And hopefully the person is not saying to you, God giveth and God taketh. Okay. Or quoting you something from the Bible or something like that. And so when you're conducting it by yourself, you have to be at a point where it's okay to be in silence or wait till when you go to sleep and then see if your spiritual crew has something to say to you. I've done some solo grief rituals where I didn't hear anything, I didn't see anything. I went to sleep at night, woke up, I didn't have any significant dream, and I'm being mindful of the platform we're on. I became very emotional about that because I wanted to hear something. I wanted to be told something. I wanted to be reassured that I will be okay. And so when I went through it by myself, I cried. Okay. I went to sleep fully expecting to have specific kinds of dreams with specific kinds of outcomes, and that didn't happen. And for me, that was painful. So you have to understand that that's a possible outcome. If you do these things by yourself, that could be a possible outcome. That's why I like doing it in a group. Because if no one else in the group has anything to tell you, as a facilitator and the ritual master, I will have something to tell you. As human beings, we want to be seen, we want to be acknowledged, we want to be validated. And the little child in each of us, regardless of age, the little child in each of us wants to be seen and heard. Especially for those of us who come from cultures where children are neither seen nor heard. They're sent for. You send for the child. And then if you don't need the child, you send the child away. The child is not like the current generation of children that just go, "Ta-da!" Many of us come from generations where you couldn't do that. You couldn't come running out, daddy, 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 or mommy, mommy, mommy. Some of us come, yeah, from those generations. You couldn't do that. You had to wait to be sent for. And this was just wasn't poor people thing. It was also a rich people thing. It was a generational thing. There are some people who came from extremely wealthy families who had to wait for their parents to summon them, and the parents would call the nanny, and the nanny would then bring them. And then when the parents had had enough of them, they would order the nanny to take them away. Mhm, you're right. I kinda understand teaching children manners. If adults are talking, kinda wait your turn or say, "Excuse me." That's not the same as it's not the same, Kiona, as you not having access to your parents when you want to at all. You had to be sent for. So you spent all your time with the nanny, or you spent all your time with the house help. There are people who grew up that way. They never grew up with, "Oh, let's go outside and play with mom and dad," or "Let's go hang out with mom and dad." It was a no-no. You hang out with the nanny. And if we need you, if we need to present you to relatives or to friends, the nanny will fetch you. And before the nanny fetches you, you will be cleaned, you will be scrubbed, you will be dressed, and you will be silent and you will only speak when you're spoken to. There are many rich kids that grew up like that. And so sometimes people think, oh, it's only the poor people. No, a lot of poor people, their kids got more love than wealthy people's kids did. Because the mother was all about maintaining her beauty, her figure, her appearance. The father was all about control and making sure that, his business associates were not bothered or disgusted or whatever it was with his environment or home life. So everything was very controlled. Everything was very controlled. And so, eh, in those kinds of families, you had set times when your parents would see you. They would the parents would see you when you're ready to go to school. The nanny will get you up and dress you and clean you and feed you, then present you to your parents and say, "Here you are." And you say, "Good morning, daddy. Good morning, mommy. Did you have a good night's sleep?" Yes. Then the nanny will take you away. You go to school. You'll come back from school, the nanny will help you with your homework, or if you had a tutor, the tutor will help you with your homework. You'll get your lunch. You'll be away in your wealthy room playing with your toys by yourself or with the other kids. When it's time to go to bed at night, the nanny would bring you if the parents requested it, and you'll say, "Daddy, good night, mommy, good night." Maybe they might allow you to kiss them on the cheek. There was no hugging. And then the nanny would take you away and get you prepped to go to bed and put you to bed. Okay. There are people who lived like that. And then when the parents got old, they couldn't understand why their children were not emotionally attached to them. They're like, "We did everything for you. We provided you with a good life. You lacked for nothing. You never suffered. We created a trust fund for you. We sent you to the best schools. We paid for vacations. We did all why now we're old and you want nothing to do with us. But you trained them. That's the kids you raised." And those parents, and we see some of them in geriatric, in the geriatric industry now. Their kids don't come to visit. There's no connection. The kids don't come to visit. The kids will call on the phone. Is Jane still alive? And the hospital facility will say, "Yeah, how is my mother do?" Some of them even address their parents by name. That is how the detachment is. They won't even say, "How's my mother?" They will say, I'm calling about Jane Jane Zulu. Is Jane Zulu still there?" The facility will say, "Yes." "Okay. Who are you?" "I'm Jane Zulu's son, Jeremy." "Is she being taken care of?" "Yes." "Does she need anything?" The facility will say, "Okay, she needs some adult diapers and she needs this and that and that." And Jeremy will say, "Okay, I'll have it sent over. Do you need anything else? Make sure you take care of her." "Well, Mr. Jeremy, Mrs. Jane said she would like to see you." Oh, okay. But he will never go. He'll say, okay. He will say, okay, but he will never go. Oh, Miss Mary, your mother wants to see you. Okay. Your father wants to see you. Okay. But they will never go because they lived a very structured life. And then a lot of these parents now, at the end, start wondering, what did I do? What did I do? I did everything for my child. I did everything for my child. What did I do? What did I do? I gave them the best life. I sent them to Ivy League schools. But you never saw them. You never acknowledged them. You never validated them. And that child, even though the child is turning around by default, treating the parent like that because the parent said this is how you manage people. So but it doesn't mean that the child isn't grieving the loss of their childhood. Because children like that are seeing other families and seeing how other families are interacting with their children, and they were saying, why is it that my friends' parents hang out with them, cuddle with them, they have movie night together and popcorn and stuff like that? If I want to watch a movie, I'll be sent out with a chauffeur. The driver will take me. The nanny will sit with us. We'll have a chaperone. My mother couldn't be bothered to listen to my stories. One teacher on TikTok was saying she set up a telephone with a voicemail message for her pupils, her kids. And they're so much fun. Just saying, if you want to talk to the teacher, pick up the phone and call and leave a message. And they are all in the same class. Okay. And she said she had so much fun just listening to the children's messages. And her mom's also a teacher, so they listen to the children's messages, and then they decided to make a TikTok account just to share that. And one of the funny stories she shared was one child saying, I just want to tell the child said, "Oh, I want to tell you, teacher, whoever, I want to tell you something really important. Can you believe?" And she mentioned the name of another kid in the class. She has two erasers in her pencil bag. Two whole erasers in her pencil bag. And she said she and her mother listened to this message and they laughed and they laughed and laughed and laughed. But she also said at that age, that is important. How come this person has two erasers in their pencil bag, in their pencil purse? They have two erasers. Can you imagine? And that the little child sounded outraged. All of us have one, and this person has two. And if your inner child is still active and kicking, you would find that funny too. Why? Because you understand it. You understand that. And she said the child sounded so outraged. Now, it wasn't like the child was saying bad things about the other child. No, the child was just outraged. How is it that this person had two erasers in their pencil bag. And I remember just listening to this, and I thought it was the funniest thing. I laughed. I thought it was so funny. I thought it was so funny. How many parents have heard their children say that to them? Mom, mom, guess what happened to school today? Or dad, dad, guess what happened to school today? What? This other kid had two erasers in their pencil bag. And many of these parents who handed off the kid to the nanny will say, "What nonsense? Why would you come up here and say such nonsense?" And they would lecture the child, and they won't participate in the silliness of it. They won't participate in the silliness of it. And so when these people grow up and they look around and they're chatting with other kids, and the other kids say, "Oh, there was one time my mom scared us with this. We were talking about the monster under the bed. And my mom said there's no monster. And then she actually crept under the bed wearing a mask. And she came out as the monster and scared us." You know, you're sitting there, you're listening to this, and you're saying, "I don't have that experience." And then you start, and sometimes it can be emotional. Sometimes you can get emotional about that. Even there's sometimes people can tell stories of their poverty, impoverished backgrounds, but when they're telling the story of their impoverishment is so attractive that you get emotional. Oh, yeah, my mom used to be a street food vendor. And we would get up at 4 a.m. in the morning and start getting the stuff together and cooking and everything and whatnot, so that she would have food ready at her stall by 6 a.m. in order to catch the people who were on their way to work. And they will have some stories about that. "Oh, I remember one time she told me to add salt to the thing. I grabbed some sugar. I didn't know. I was too young to know the difference between salt and sugar, and I added sugar." And now that they're older, they can laugh about that. And you're sitting and listening to that, and what's crossing your mind is, "My mother never asked me to do anything." Some people are emotional about that. "I never got to do anything with my mother," or "I never got to do anything with my father." Some men, their fathers didn't teach them how to shave. They learned how to shave from social media. They learned how to shave from their classmates. The point I'm trying to make here is that there are all kinds of grief out there. And sometimes we need to sit down and say, "This is what it is," and not run away from it, and not try to gloss it over, and not and 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 not to say, "Oh, I've accepted it." I didn't. It's okay not to accept it. It's okay not to accept it. It's okay. Many of us grew up with narcissistic parents, but it doesn't make it okay. And when we were growing up with narcissistic parents, we didn't have the language for it then. We did not have the language for it. We would say selfish parents, we would say parents who don't care. We had other kinds of terms, but we didn't have the current language. Now everybody's throwing that around, narcissism, narcissistic. We didn't have that kind of language then. And so when your parents were being narcissistic, you didn't understand what it was. You're sitting there and you're asking yourself, why is this person like this? And you're a child trying to understand it, and you don't even have a lot of life experience, and you're trying to understand it, and you go and start telling other kids. You tell other adults. And that's why I said to you, when I told that aunt, I thought she was safe because I saw her hugging her son. And so I thought she was safe to tell this thing to, and she wasn't safe. She was not safe. She was not a safe person. And I remember, when I was away in high school, trying to tell some of my classmates in high school, I called two of them that I figured were good friends of mine, and I started telling them, saying, "This is what happens in my home." And I remember both of them sitting there looking at me, and then they went, "It doesn't happen in our house." But they were children just like myself. We were all 11 years old, 12 years old. And I'm still trying to tell some because it was not okay. But the people around me were saying it's okay. And I'm saying it's not okay. And so I go to my peers and I'm saying this is what's happening to, and they're like, well, no, it doesn't happen to us. And I vent and I tell them everything. And they're horrified. And I told them everything that was going on in my household, and they were horrified. And after I told them that story, they started avoiding me. And they went and became friends with other girls, and they didn't want to be friends with me. Imagine how that makes you feel as an 11 or 12-year-old. And at that age, you don't understand that your fellow 11 or 12-year-old doesn't have enough knowledge or experience to tell you what to do. They were not being cruel. No, they weren't being cruel. They didn't know what to do. If you, as you were today, went to an 11 or 12-year-old and told them your problem, the things that cause you grief, are they in a position to tell you what to do about it? We should be very careful about just throwing out statements like that, because people just say these things. Oh, children can be so cruel. When you were 11 or 12 years old, did you have enough experience and knowledge to advise someone else about what they were going through in their household? Did you? I didn't. I did not. At 11 or 12, you coming to me for advice. Like, I need advice. I need validation. I need help. So you have kids trying to tell other kids this is what's going on. And those kids you're telling have their own situation they're trying to deal with. And they're kids, just like you, they're kids. How do you expect them to give you psychotherapy? Because what you need is some psychotherapy. How on earth are they going to provide you with that psychotherapy? It's not possible. So that's why when you look at indigenous communities, just like the one Dr. Malidoma Some described his own the Dagbara community, they already have these things inbuilt. Thank you. Okay. I would have felt confused, unheard, misunderstood, hopeless, isolated, cursed, and that there's something wrong with me. Yes. Because you going to an adult is saying, oh, well, it's happening to you because you're a bad child. And then you go to your peers, and your peers are looking at you going, well, that doesn't happen to us in our household. And they start avoiding you. Then people start seeing you as the weird one. And so when you look at those indigenous communities, they had inbuilt mechanisms for this kind of thing. But when many of us, abandoned our indigenous traditions, indigenous cultures, and started getting Christianized and Islamicized and all other kind of sizings, started leaving indigenous ways for the Abrahamic faiths, for other kinds of things, we lost this knowledge. We lost the knowledge of how to do these things. And so you have generations of people who don't know what to do. And I remember some years ago, I caught up with some of my, high school friends, mates, and we were chatting, and I said to them, "What do you remember about me?" They said, "Yeah, you used to be such a skinny girl. I remember, and we remember you were beaten all the time at home." So it stayed in their memories. Well, remember that time you were beaten all the time at home. They remembered. And now I'm talking to women. These women are in their 60s. So what do you remember of me in high school? That's what they remember. They didn't remember it. They remember that I used to play pranks. I was the class clown. They remember that I was pretty smart, that I had a good command of language. I used to use big words from the dictionary. They remember that. But overriding thing they remember, we remember, yeah, you were always being beaten. And these are women in their 60s. And some of them said to me, over the years we were wondering whatever happened to you. Because as they got older and got more experienced, they started understanding that what I was telling them was not normal. And so there's a part of them, because I forced them to become my witnesses. I was trying to grieve this, but as children, they didn't know what to do or how to facilitate this. And here I was as a child forcing them to be witnesses to my grief. And now, as adults, they were now saying, we witnessed and we never forgot. We witnessed and we never forgot. So that's why I'm saying that the witnessing itself is so powerful. Even if the person is unable to provide a solution, even if the person, as long as the person is not putting you down or making you feel worse, the fact that you're able to say in front of a witness, this is what happened to me and this is how I feel, that is powerful in itself, because as human beings, we want to be seen, we want to be heard, we want to be acknowledged, we want to be validated, and we want to be held. Does this make sense? So it doesn't matter how old you are. A whole bunch of us 60-something-year-olds, we're sitting together and talking about what happened when we were 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 50 years ago. Talking about something that happened almost half a century ago, to show you how powerful it is. Something that happened almost half a century ago, if not half a century ago. We're still talking about it now. Oh. So I guess we're not telling today's story. No one said that they wanted to hear today's story. I did have a good story from South Africa. Okay, let's go. Musa story. Musa story. I was going to tell a Musa story. Zulu Musa story. See, my clicking is getting better. Okay. That's why we need these things. Okay. So that's why we're going to have it next Wednesday, 1 p.m. CST. I encourage you to secure your spot. I send you the list of a few items you need to get. Make sure you have quiet and privacy for 1.5 hours. This is your time. You deserve that time. You deserve that time. Don't be saying to yourself, oh, I don't have enough time. You deserve that time. Place enough value on yourself to say, I need the time to process my grief. I need the time to go through this ritual and see what happens on the other side of it. You're welcome, my dear. You're welcome. And I also want to say this other important thing. If there are people in your life who refuse to hear you, validate you, acknowledge you, it's okay to let them go. You're not obligated to stay there. You're not obligated to stay there and hope that they will change just because you're connected to them. It's okay for you to say thanks, but no thanks. It's okay. It's okay to leave people who will not protect you, defend you, celebrate you. It's okay to leave them. And it doesn't matter what arguments they advance to keep you there with them. If they are not enhancing your life, it's okay for you to say bye-bye. It's okay. And it's okay to grieve the loss of these people and move on. It's okay. You're not there for me. You were not there for me. You didn't support me. You didn't help me. You didn't do the things that I needed you to do for me. Bye. It's okay. You don't need to feel guilty about it or, oh my God, how are they going to feel? They're not worried about how you feel about what they're doing. You can set aside some time and grieve what that could have been had it worked out. You can grieve that. And I remember years and years and years ago, I grieve that. I wish I had grown up in such and such kind of family. I wish I had such and such siblings and such parents and such cousins and such home life. I grieved it. And once I was able to grieve not having those things, I was able to let it go and be okay with it because I'd already processed the grief of it and be okay. And when I say okay, I'm not saying being bitter. Okay. It's just like saying, I wanted to be a trillionaire. I'm not a trillionaire. I would have loved to be a trillionaire. I'm not a trillionaire. Am I ever going to be a trillionaire? I'm not sure I'm going to be a trillionaire. I'm okay with being a millionaire, but I would have liked to be a trillionaire, but I'm not going to lose sleep over it. And I can watch videos of people splashing their wealth and fame and status and everything and be okay with it. Okay. I wanted to be like that. I'm not like that. I'm still somebody and still have a good life. I still have my family. I still have my friends. I still have my business. I want it to be a size 2, size 4. It's not going to happen. I can never be a size 2. I can never be a size 4. It's not going to happen. Even my bones are bigger than a size 2. My bones are bigger than a size 4. There's nothing I can do to be a size 2 or size 4. My bones. Look at my wrist. Look at the and this is my bone right here. When a lot of women I know place their wrist against my wrist, and I'm not talking about people who have fat. This is not fat. See that? This is not fat. See that? That's not fat. Look over here on this side. That's not fat. That's skin. See? This is just skin. Most women I know who are not fat, who place their wrist against my wrist. Their their wrist is like 2/3 of mine. Their wrists are like here. Their wrists are like yay wide. That's just my wrist. We're not even talking other parts of my body. So I'm not going to be a size 2 or a size 4. It's not happening. Even though that was held up as a standard for me, even though I was made fun of, I remember being told, "Oh, you're so big." I remember then I must have been like a size 6 or size 8 and being told I was fat. Size 6 or size 8. Being told I was fat. Oh, you have a small head and a big body. Right now, you can look at me. This is not a size 8. And this is not a size 6. Okay. This is not a size 8. This is not a size 6. I had grief around that, but I'm okay. My dad saying your bones are big because you carry so much heavy load as a spiritual practitioner. You're such a sweetheart. Well, thank you. I think my bones are big because I eat well. That's my personal opinion. And I also come from on my mom's side of the family that they're the giants. They kind of tend to be kind of big folk, big bone folk, both the men and the women. Okay, and they were known for physical strength. They were known for physical strength. Okay, but yeah, I accept that. My bones had to be big in order to carry the load as a spiritual practitioner. And metaphorically and figuratively saying, I agree. I was given the body that was necessary for my life destiny. But it still didn't mean that I didn't want to be a size 2 or size 4. You see, we can know these things logically. We can know them. We can know this, but it still doesn't prevent us from wanting what we want. Still doesn't prevent us from desiring what we desire. You can know something intellectually. I know I will never be a size 2. I know I will never be a size 4, but it still doesn't mean that I can't desire it and get frustrated because I cannot be it. And a lot of times, our grief settles in that space. And so oh, your bones are big because you carry so much heavy weight as a spiritual practitioner. Your arms are solid and there's nothing hanging. Oh, your skin is smooth and there's nothing, no dimples or cellulite. And people will say all these things, and intellectually you hear it. But there's still a part of you on the inside that says, I wish I was a size 2. I wish was a size 4. And the grief then resides there. So in a grief ritual, you ritualistically deal with that so that you don't have to carry it. So you don't have to carry it. You don't have to carry it. Another question that sometimes arises is a grief ritual one and done? Sometimes it's not. Many times it's not. Because you could do a grief ritual and deal with, okay, why would someone be washing their car in front of a gate? Okay, never mind. I need to mind my own business. A, a grief ritual oftentimes is not a one and done. Because as you identify certain things you grieve about and you grieve about them and you deal with that grief, after a while, other things will start coming up. Some of our griefs are so far repressed down that it is specific triggers that call them up again. Specific triggers. And so if that trigger doesn't exist, it will not be called up. So let's say I was living with a whole bunch of people who were 200 pounds, 300 pounds, 400 pounds, 500 pounds. I may not think about my desire to be 2 to 4, size 2 or size 4. I would have other things I'm worrying about. However, if I should leave that environment and maybe go live with skinnier people, then that desire that I had may arise. And then I'll start remembering. And then there'll be something I need to deal with. Okay, so we've been on here for 2 hours. I'm sorry I didn't tell today's story. I'll tell it tomorrow. How about that? But remember, the Matchstick Girl story is all about misusing your resources for survival. Being able to recognize what is yours to carry and what is not yours to carry. Understanding that there are some circumstances that are out of your control. The little matchstick girl tried her best, but her best was not good enough. And unfortunately, she was forced to be an adult, even when an adult was present. The adults who should have been taking care of her didn't take care of her. But She didn't have what it took to be an adult because she was a child. And so she had to abandon ship. So I want you to know you can abandon ship. If the load is not yours to carry, it's okay for you to say goodbye. We're thankful to our Creator, our guardian spirits, our ancestors, and our spirit guides for today's sharing and forbidden fruit. May it be wasted in our lives. Ashe. We say, Kamaga, Kozala Sedi Mukwande, Baba, it is done. It's finished in whole. Amen. Ma'at. And I'll see y'all tomorrow. Love you all. Thank you for coming to class. I appreciate you. I know you could be doing something else, but you chose to come to class. And for that, I thank you.